Hey guys, so it's only fitting that I should have my little library in the background as I do my 2020 wrap up of my favorite reads for 2020, and I'm going to give my top 5 reads. So I'm doing a series of my top 5 for 2020, and this one is going to be my top 5 reads. Of course, for a lover of books, it is always difficult to choose just 5, but you know, I had to do it, and here we go. So I'm going to get started off right away with my first read, which was a really small book, and it is How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. Probably got that wrong, and he is one of the best known Zen teachers out there. He does a lot of work on mindfulness, and his readings are really amazing, inspirational, to get you, into that meditation mindset. And I'm not really sure why I picked this one. I bought this, actually, I started off 2020 on a wonderful trip to Curacao. And I have my note in here that I bought this on the 3rd of January 2020 in Curacao. And I thought, you know what, I had heard about his name before, and it's such a little read, and probably I thought maybe it would make a great reading on a vacation, by the beach or the poolside somewhere. And his work is just, it's so thoughtful and mindful and centering, and there are so many little sentences in here that require that you read them slowly and pause, and that you reflect afterwards. And even though this one, it's how to love, and it says that he brings his signature clarity, compassion, and humor to the essential question of how to love. And even though that it talks about love, and oftentimes love in terms of intimate relationships or relationships, for me, for those of you who might have been following me for some time now, especially those on Instagram, and my clients, of course, would know that for me, love is not a word that I keep only in the sphere of intimate or personal relationships. Love, I think, is at the core of what each person does. When I work with clients and I see that they're struggling, and yet they will tell me they love themselves, or they love their business, or they love their body, they love their clients. But when we dive deep down and I say, prove to me, show me that you love your clients, show me that you love your business, show me that you love yourself, show me that you love your body, show me that you love your mind, then it's really hard for a lot of people to prove that. Love is not a word that is only for our intimate relationships. The first person we should love actually is ourselves. And I really believe that when we don't show love to ourselves first, the brain keeps record of it. You really can't fool yourself. You can't fool at least your subconscious mind. So I think in here it applies not just to relationships, but also to your relationship with yourself. Some of my favorite readings, let's see. When our hearts are small, our understanding and compassion are limited, and we suffer. We can't accept or tolerate others and their shortcomings, and we demand that they change. But when our hearts expand, these same things don't make us suffer anymore. When we feed and support our own happiness, we are nourishing our ability to love. And for myself, first as a trainer, but then really as a coach, my heart has to expand. My heart has to expand, one, to suspend judgment when I'm working with clients, and also to have the ability to help others on their journey. So for me, I'm always working on that ability to love. And let's see, so some of my other favorite readings, what else did I like in here? There's a lot, I underlined a lot, but here is a really good one. Our practice is to water the flower in our loved one and not bring them more garbage. He is being real there. So are we bringing garbage to our loved ones, and including ourselves, including our business, including our careers, all of that, all the things that we say that we love, are we bringing garbage, you know? And sometimes you really have to pause and think about that. And of course, year-end review is a great time to really think about, where do I say that I love but that I'm actually bringing garbage? I also really like in this book that he gives as well 20 questions for looking into your relationship. So, you know, if you actually now are thinking you've read the book, but you don't really know how to apply and you want a little guidance, he has those 20 questions. And then extra, there are some practices. So there's some mantras and there's some meditations. So again, helping you now put those thoughts into some kind of action and practice. This is for me definitely, did I make a note when I ended it? I just ended by saying excellent read. And so much so, I will most likely buy other books by him as well. So that's one of my favorite reads for 2020. Love, definitely a theme, that a concept that got us through this year, let's face it. So my second in my top 5 reads for 2020 is Green Darkness by Anya Seton. And Anya Seton is an American author known for her historical fiction, so books that are in the past, right? Personally, my 2 favorite historical, I guess, time periods, my number 1 is actually early 19th century, end of the 19th century, early 20th century. I get confused. So the late 1800s, early 1900s. I absolutely love that time period, especially books and movies, specifically in London and New York. I don't know, I just love that turn of a century time, how it's depicted. I know it's sometimes often seen as a sort of dirty, grimy time, but there's an energy in that time that I think people knew that there was big change was coming. And my other period where this one is sort of that 1500 Tudor period. So the book is actually, without giving away too much, it actually starts in probably something like the 1970s or so, but then it goes back in time. It is a book about, I guess, reincarnation in a sense, but it mostly takes place in that Tudor 1500 period. And if you know her work, it's so well researched, so you feel like you are in those times. It's just to the nth detail of what life would have been like then, to the nth detail, but not with that graphic, not extremely graphic. So I first read this book in 1991, so some time ago, and I've read it several times since. So yes, there are some books that I will read over because I absolutely enjoy them. This is one of them. And my other favorite book, which I'm always rereading, it's by my bedside, is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Don't let the modern movies distract you. The original Dracula by Bram Stoker is just a perfect book in itself. Anyway, so I do reread books. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I do, and I'm always transported once again, I find, to how I felt about the book the first time I read it. So that again, so it's in there. I read it, I could not put it there. My third top read for 2020, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I've probably done an earlier review on this. This was definitely a book that we all heard a lot about, and of course, in my work as a coach, I'm definitely working with people, especially on my Do It Like a Boss program. I'm helping people go from overwhelmed, frustrated, lost to focus, discipline, and results, getting results. Helping people organize all the thoughts and ideas that they have and really putting a system in place built on what I call value add habits. So of course I am a lover of the topic of habits, and he just puts this his ideas on habits in such a clear way. There's such clarity in his writing that makes it an easy read. How much did I like it? Oh man, I just have like pages. I write the page and the theme or you know, topic at the time, and there's just so much in here that of course I loved. Things about what disciplined people do, dopamine, my goodness, I'm always talking about neurotransmitters and dopamine, fear of failure, procrastination, the brain and habit formation. So he dives deep into all that good stuff on what it takes to be really have a lifestyle of good habits. Personally, I think he's a little bit against goals, so I like a blend. I think we need to have a system of value-add habits, but we also need goals to keep us on track as well. There's again lots of underlines in here, tons of it. What did I want to read? I noted here. So there's something that I talk about with my clients, which is really looking at percentages. So I tell them that we want to be, once we figured out the habits that are going to support the lifestyle that we want, those value add habits, we want to be performing in a higher percentage. So when we're reviewing, we are always reviewing from a place of compassion, but we want to make sure that when we do a review, how much was I actually executing that habit? And the truth is, if you are in the higher 60, 70, 75, 80, 85%, you're doing a good job. You're probably gonna execute, you're gonna achieve your goal, and you're going to achieve that lifestyle that you want. So he says it here, your goal is simply to win the majority of time. And what perfection does is perfection makes you think that you should go for 100%. It's unattainable, and of course that's not setting yourself up for failure. Whereas when you're working for a higher percentage, as I call it, that's doable. What percentage of time that you have a habit in place, you know, on your calendar, that differs from person to person and how they progress, but that's really that's what you're aiming for, right? And he talks about tracking. You know, many people resist this idea, and this one sometimes is a bit of a tough one when I have my clients track their time. Like, yo, I'm not into the to-do list. That to-do lists are not based, they're not in reality. To-do lists are lists of things you'd like to get done. To-do lists, I think, could work for people who in the back of their mind really have that time calendar running. But I would say for a lot of people who are suffering from overwhelm, fear of failure, procrastination, imposter syndrome, we need to get into reality. And the only way to do that is really to track it and measure it. So I'm huge on tracking and measuring. And oh, this is something I did want that I really like. So improvement is not just about learning habits, it's also about fine-tuning them. And fine-tuning is what I would refer to my clients when I'm talking about once we've rewired your habits, we want to get into the zone of optimization. So that's that fine-tuning when we're optimizing habits now. Yeah, because of course, and this of course implies that there is a process of feedback and self-analysis constantly happening. So how could I not have James Clear book in my top 5 for 2020? It's a must read, and again, it's such an easy read. So hats off to him for bringing these concepts in such a digestible way. Okay, my last 2 reads are actually memoirs, and I've been really getting into memoirs in the last few years. So last year, I think my favorite memoir was Becoming by Michelle Obama. I think the year before that was in Malala's story, Yousafzai, somewhere around there, story. And, you know, in Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, she said something that has just resonated with me. And I know this because I have to say thankfully, because I've had the opportunity. Now I'm in business for 15 years, in corporate learning and development, in my one-to-one coaching. I've met thousands. My company has trained in the thousands. I have personally trained over 2,000 people, train and coach. And one of the biggest lessons that you will learn as a trainer or coach is that, as she put in her book, everybody has a story. You know, everybody out there is walking around with their story. It doesn't make one story better than the other, but it is, for me, very beautiful when that story is captured in one of my favorite art forms, which is, of course, in literature, in writing. So my last two top reads for 2020, first is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, who I knew nothing about before I read this book. And it's interesting because I kind of wonder, was that done on purpose? I'm not sure. And because, you know, nowadays everybody wants to be the face, wants to be out there. And I'm gonna say that I will probably recommend this to all my entrepreneur clients. He brings his full person to this story, his story. And it's not one of those business books. To be honest, even if I'm working with business people, I often don't read business memoirs. I love to read memoirs by creatives or people just out of the business field, actually. And you know, he really paints a full picture of what he brought to his business and to his brand. And he brought his full self. He really did. And you know, he speaks about his journey when he was young, his drive, his love for, his absolute love for two things: his love for sports and his love for his brand. And it, you know, I don't know if we often get such insights into a person like this who's created such an amazing brand, into how he grew from a young man into the, you know, huge business leader he is today. Insights into his family, his really personal life, insight into how he was as a leader and how he grew as a leader, you know. And he brings all of that in, his successes, his failures, all of it, because guess what, all of it is part of the journey. And you know, some things that I like, so he's, you know, saying here something, it's not that there's no finish line, it's that you define the finish line. Whatever pleasures or gains you derive from the act of running, you must find them within. It's all how you frame it and how you sell it to yourself. And you know, that is so much why the model that I've created for my clients all starts with up here. Because again, you can go so far with superficial apps and tips and tools and tricks. You can run for a little while on them, but whatever is ticking up here is going to come through the cracks eventually. So that is just amazing how he puts it together. You know, let everyone else call your idea crazy, just keep going, don't stop, don't even think about stopping until you get there, and don't give much thought to where there is. Whatever comes, just don't stop. I absolutely love that. I think I know from my journey in business, you know, you do have goals, right? You have targets, etc. But I find that so many new entrepreneurs that I meet, and this has nothing to do with young, new, because I've had older entrepreneurs come to me, I've had younger, right? But they're all new. You know, they're so fixed on what the there should be. And it's just like, yo, don't focus too much on that. I want you to more focus on that running towards the there. That's that effort, drive, and you know, the systems you put in place. He talks a lot about what it takes, you know, in terms of believing in your brand and your team retreats. That was an important one for him, and also something that is at one of my fundamental four sources of energy, meditation. So he definitely is big on mental strength, and he pulls on his learnings from, you know, exploring different ways to be mentally strong. And you know, he said that something had happened to him, and he said, I vowed from then on I'd meditate, you know, whatever it took to hold it together. And a lot of us today, we're so focused on our physical strength, but we forget what is running all of you. It's your brain. Okay, your brain runs everything, and we need to also think about our mental strength. Meditation is one of the best ways to build those mental muscles. So this is absolutely, it's now one of my must reads for entrepreneurs, and I really enjoy this one. And my last top 5, my last favorite read for 2020 was The Meaning of Mariah Carey. And I think I don't want to get too much into why people love or hate Mariah Carey. That's not the point. The point is, we're reading the story of somebody who has achieved an enormous amount of success in her field. Enormous amount of success, as a writer, as a singer, as an artist, as a creator. And I think anytime you see somebody who's achieved that much, you kind of should want to be curious about, wow, I wonder how, and it's so easy to believe that, oh, it must have been so easy for her. She has a beautiful voice. What does she have to do? She just has to sing. And anyone who's achieved anything knows, come on, there were challenges. And again, it's just beautiful to hear her story. So, as I said, as Michelle Obama said, everybody has a story, and Mariah Carey has a story. This was a book that was gifted to me by very talented interior designer and a friend, and it came to me at a time when, let's just say, I needed to read something like this. So I got this in October 2020, and it was a book. I can't remember the last time I read something where I actually went through a range of emotions. So joy, happiness, and tears. Probably not since Malala Yousafzai's book, probably. You'll get the full range of emotions in here. And a lot of things. She does talk a lot about when she is in her creative zone, and I absolutely love hearing more from creators, how they get in that zone, and hearing them talk about it when they're in it. And she says, when you're in a zone, it's a miraculous madness. Some of us call that flow. In the zone, you're just in a place where you are doing your work, you are serving, you're creating, and it's a beautiful place to be in, of course, right? And she says another thing that I talk about a lot myself in my work. And she says, I'm not sure who she was talking about here, but she says both of us were absolutely ambitious and still maintained a childlike wonder and curiosity about the world. And I think that is just something that, to be quite honest, a lot of people lose or hide that childlike wonder, that curiosity. Everybody knows everything, everybody's done everything, and gosh, that makes for a boring conversation. When we stop being curious, when we stop being wowed, there are places I've traveled to, and when people see my reaction, I talk about it, they say, oh, that was the first time you went, and I said, no, I've been there 5 times, 20 times, and they say, that's surprising, it still wows you. Of course, if something is beautiful, something is amazing, why shouldn't it wow us, right? So I really appreciated that. And definitely, of course, if you are also a Mariah Carey fan, you will love this book, because you also get the insight into the story behind some of her songs. So what was her inspiration to write those songs? So I do think in 2021 I am going to be reading more memoirs. So if anybody has any good suggestions, let me know. I did already get Barack Obama's book. Right now, the name of it doesn't come to me, but the new one that came out in November 2020. So I already have one to read. And if I want to make a last notable mention, so okay, it's not number 6, but this is an amazing book. I'm just going to pull it here. I think I might have read this early 2020. It is a genre that I do really like. So I hope I don't scare anybody off, but I really do like these suspense thriller books, and this is last one I'm just going to mention, The Chestnut Man by, I'm going to say this wrong, Soren Spiesrup. This is going to have you at the edge of your seat, and you will devour this book. It's going to turn your stomach at times, but it is an absolutely wonderful thriller of a book. And if you like that type of book, it's a must read. Now, typically, if I buy a thriller, I will give it away, typically, because, you know, the thrillers, you can just sort of eat them, but I'm not giving up my Chestnut Man. It is staying on my shelf. Okay, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed learning about my favorite reads for 2020, and make sure to look out for my other videos where I'm going to be covering things as my best business tips, my life tips, my favorite apps programs for 2020 as well.